Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Jenna Green, the Operations and Programs Manager for the Glass Art Society. And before we get the program started, we have a few logistics to cover and online practices to review. We will be recording today's program and posting it on our YouTube channel. So while we hope you will keep your cameras on, only do so if you're comfortable. We also ask that you keep yourselves on mute unless you're speaking. And if you have any questions or comments, comments, we would love to hear them. And also, because we know people engage in different ways, you're welcome to either grab the mic and unmute yourself to speak. You can also use the raise hand function so I or Caitlin know that you have something to say, or you can use the chat box and I'll read those questions out loud. We will try our best to answer all these questions. And also good to know is that closing extra tabs on your device can help avoid video delays or glitches. And now would be a good time to go ahead and close any of those if you need to. As our online community practices go, we ask that everyone be respectful, speak from their own experience, and challenge yourself not to make assumptions. Instead, ask questions and go a bit deeper. We also want to acknowledge that some of us are currently on Indigenous lands, and all across the world, people are dealing with issues of colonialization. For those who haven't been to a GAS student meetup program before, these are virtual monthly meetings meant to create space for students from around the world to discuss glass materials and processes, view lectures and demos, attend virtual studio tours, and meet leaders in the glass community. Typically, our program is moderated by our current GAS student representative, Paige Morris, but unfortunately, she's not here today, so I will be stepping in. We are joined, I'm very excited, by Curator Caitin Vitalo, who is also a GAS board secretary, past GAS board student representative, all the words. To hear her insight about conceptualizing and crafting the new Glass in the Expanded Field exhibit at the Hunterdon Art Museum in New Jersey. And with that, I will pass it over to Caitlin. Thanks, Caitlin, for joining us.
Thank you. Well, hi everybody. So, since you guys aren't here to see the show in person, I figured I'd kind of just give you a brief overview of what I was thinking when I put the show together and then show you all of the pieces in the show. So this exhibition is called Glass in the Expanded Field. I'm not sure if any of you have had to read Rosalind Krauss's essay, Sculpture in the Expanded Field yet in any of your art history classes, but that's kind of what the title of this show was pulling from. It's thinking about language and how we define glass art and what glass art is in relation to ourselves and to how others view glass artists. So my thought process is that glass in general is changing greatly from how the material is being used, who's using it, the messages that are being pushed with the artwork that's being made. So I did my best to kind of include a wide array of artists from emerging to established and a diverse group of artists who are also using the materials very differently. So let's just get started and show you guys some of the work. If you have any questions about process or things that I'm passing over maybe too quickly, just feel free to shout it out. So this, see if I can back it up. This is one of the first pieces in the exhibition, as you see when you come in. It's by Scout Cartagena. So it's silk screen on mirror. So she's got this kind of rug pattern built into, printed on top of this mirror. And she's thinking a lot about memory and home and self-reflection. So she's kind of blocking your reflection with these thoughts of who you are and where you came from and home. So it's a different type of self-reflection. So something I found as I was putting all of these works together for this exhibition was that a lot of these artists are exploring contradicting topics, which is kind of on par with glass being a material that's both hot and cold and liquid and solid and transparent and opaque. And there's too much outside noise, just let me know, okay? So this next piece is by Jessica Jane Julius. So this is an installation she made called Irradiated Circuitry. So it's flame worked glass in copper wire, and then there's a 2D element included. So I'll zoom in a little bit, hope it's not blurry. So this piece is kind of exploring fear and chaos and kind of thinking through these things that we can't really understand. So it's based in Jess Julius's experience with not being able to, what's the word for it? I can't remember, it's slipping my mind. Let's see. Dyslexia, that's the word. So she's thinking a lot about dyslexia and language and how there's kind of this network of things that you can't access when you're experiencing dyslexia. And so here's the close-up of the print that's also in the show. Let's see. So it's all these little press-on letters that she rubs onto the paper and layers on top of each other to create this kind of illegible imagery that's then further blocked by the network that she's created that's kind of hanging in front of it. So she's using glass, copper, paper, printed materials. So it's just a whole different grouping of materials that aren't just glass, but she still considers it glass art. And then we have Eric Goldschmidt. He's a lamp worker. He's also on the board, so is Jessica. So these two goblets are called If One of Us Can't Breathe, None of Us Can Breathe, and that would be this black one back here. And then the second one is Looking to a Rosier Future. So again, these are both lamp worked. And Eric is using this, traditional goblet making style and really fine craft. He's pairing it with these contemporary topics and themes. So he's got some letters in there. There's the Black Lives Matter movement. So thinking about kind of what's going on in contemporary society and trying to express that through these old technical processes. And then we'll move on next to, so we've got Dan Coyle. So this is his piece. It's called Kung Fu Monkey. And so Dan Coyle is a pipe maker. Just check my time. I feel like I'm blowing through the show really quick, sure I get through everybody. So Dan Coyle is a pipe maker, and the topics that he considers a lot in his work is like these childhood toys. So it's kind of interesting, like the comparisons that he's working with is this kind of adult material of, a pipe that you smoke out of while using these childhood topics. So mixing childhood and adulthood and things like that. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's super detailed. It's really nice. Then we'll move on to Angus Powers. So this installation is called, I always get this wrong, Setting the Table on the Moon, Vicarious Affirmations. So this is made with glass and wood and plastic. So it's 3D printed plastic as well. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a close-up. So these here, those are blown glass. These are plastic, or printed plastic as well. So Angus is kind of exploring a lot of different things. So he's thinking a lot about the vessel and like, what is a vessel? So a vessel is a cup, a vessel is a body, a vessel as a planet. And how do we explore through the vessel? And from there, he goes on to kind of explore these little toy astronauts while he's thinking about the vessel as a planet. And then with the toys, he starts kind of thinking design and how does exploration lead to design? And then how do we design new objects? And his thought process is that these new objects created through design happens through surprising explorations. So as if these astronauts are exploring some weird 3-leveled kitchen table. They've discovered these new uses for the vessel. Right. And moving on, Kim Thomas. So Kim Thomas is a lamp worker. So these are all just these lamp worked little installations just for size. Like here's my hand. So these 2 pieces are called, this is the cloud capturing apparatus, which I'll go a little closer in detail after. And this is the cloud riding apparatus. So Kim Thomas, a lot of her work is kind of exploring the idea of human existence, like childlike lens. So she's creating these kind of stories of how you would escape a place that you don't want to be. So her thought is that, well, you would just, create these clouds and catch them, and then you would ride them away to wherever you needed to go. So she's exploring these kind of adult topics through this childhood lens. And at the same time, she's using glass in this really interesting way where it doesn't quite always look like glass. And then it's also kinetic, but it's not super functional because, this is like a little maquette. So let me see if I can get some more close up. So there's all these little parts to it. It's like that little brick right there. Up through here. So the way that she says you use it is that you would press these little like fire starter things here, and then they would suck in the clouds from the sky, and then it would be captured in your basket right here. And you never know, like any additional tools you need, like if your ladder isn't, obviously you'd need like a shoe and a sandal to make sure it's not wobbly while you're catching these clouds. So that's a cloud catching apparatus. And then once you're riding it over here, you've got this little basket for you to sit in, and these little bricks she created out of glass to tie onto, so you can let them drop off if somebody's coming after you and they've got their own cloud riding apparatus. You never know, they could catch up to you. And then this little tool to make you go faster, things like that. So these parts kind of slide in and out. So she's using glass in all these really different ways. And for the most part, this is primarily glass, except for the ropes are string. Yeah. So Kim is a really interesting artist, I think. And it's funny to see the way the play between the way Kim uses play and the way Angus uses play and the way Dan uses play. And then even more play. So we've got Deborah Schirresco. So she made this piece called Smart Pet. It's got a lot of different parts to it. Let's see if I can get down here. So these are all hand sculpted or hand blown. So we've got these 2 dogs and their toys, these like rawhide toys. And let's see if I can get in here. So they've got their carriers that have these functional doors, as you can see. So these are mold blown, the carriers, and then these were made in the kiln. And let's see what else, get you some close-ups. Yeah, Deborah's work is really cool. So Deborah's thinking a lot like similar to Kim, with these like fun, playful pieces paired with these like heavy topics. So she's using these dogs as kind of sit-ins for people. So she's thinking a lot about conditioning and human needs. And she refers to this Kong toy kind of as like a, the piece of cheese that's hung in front of our faces, that going. So what are the things that we are inherently driven to do because of outside cultural recommendations that are kind of just forced upon us without our thinking. Let's see if I can get a better close-up of part of these. Yeah, so these are all like life size, which is exciting too. All right, so that's Deborah. And past Deborah's piece is Sarah Blood. So Sarah Blood is faculty at Alfred University. So is Angus Powers. So this piece is called Blind Eye, which is kind of a play on a lot of different things. But talking to Sarah about this piece, she was really interested at the time, which was kind of a little bit after COVID started, thinking about access and who has access to what information and who doesn't, and how that affects how we see things. So this is like VHS tape, kind of poured all over the floor. And leaning up, there's a neon ring, and then underneath there is this convex mirror. So she's using all of these materials that are used in surveillance, but kind of in this very excessive, slightly unnecessary way, as a way to point out that, you know, in the excess, like, what are we left with? Something that doesn't really do anything that it was created for initially. Can't really see anything. If anything, it's provided us with more blind spots than we had to begin with. So talking to Sarah a little bit about this piece, it's a modern day panopticon, which is kind of this Foucault theory about how we access power and who sees who has power. So that's Sarah's piece, another installation. And then turning around, we've got Ben Orozco's piece. So this is called Identified Spaces. This piece is made by Ben Orozco, but he's here representing Fag Signs, which is a company that was started by Matthew de Perez in Brooklyn. So Fag Signs represents the LGBTQIA community, as well as anybody else who feels like they're marginalized. And through the material of neon, he teaches them kind of a craft and a skill, and something that they can then support themselves with to have a job or things like that, but also to create community. So Ben created this piece thinking about pronouns and identity and claiming space. So he's using this material that was used initially for, you know, for advertisement, to advertise, you know, the personal body and the identity politic. Some side view, it's on this really nice black piece that's super reflective. Right, and it kind of like lights up the whole back space of this gallery. And then we've got Andrew Erdos. So he's an artist based in Brooklyn, New York. This piece is just gold animal with silver legs. So it's part of a larger body of work that Andrew has created that's making these kind of futuristic characters that are thinking about the past and the present. So again, this kind of dichotomy of two things existing in one. So it's kind of like, you know, where does the sky meet the earth, and where does technology meet people, and what happens when we're gone, and what's left behind? Like, are these prehistoric animals or mirrorized dinosaur parts, or are they aliens that are visiting our planet? So talking to Andrew about this piece is very interesting. So it's these hand-blown mirrored pieces, additional parts, and it's all resting on top of this sky print that then reflects in the bottom of the piece. All right, and next, so this is Raghav Bhasin. She's a recent grad from RISD from her undergrad. And again, similar to Andrew, she's exploring the past and the present. So she's using these seed beads. You guys can see them in this detail. So seed beads were originally made in India, I believe, and then they went over to Italy, and they were used by makers in all of those spaces to kind of create these fine, detailed craft pieces. However, they were also used as a material by colonizers as kind of a form of money. So they've got this like really varied history in religion, in culture, in colonization, and just in the basis of so many rituals in many different cultures. So that's what Raghav is exploring in these, especially the fact that they came from India, and that's where Raghav is from. And then she's using the imagery of the hand to kind of explore the topics of craft and making. And then through the cracks in this fused piece of glass, she's thinking about our kind of broken histories and how things are kind of all put back together and still manage to stay intact as one singular piece. So it's put together individually with the beads on one sheet of glass. And then there's a second sheet of sheet glass behind it. It's fused and then hexed together. You guys can see on the edge. Okay, and on to the next one. So further kind of confusing maybe the outside view of glass, of someone outside the glass community, we have Yeshwan Pan's work called Ice Cold, a concept album on glass. So Pan recently received her MFA from the Tyler School of Art, and she is less of a glass maker and more of kind of a glass explorer, I think. So she calls this piece kind of an ode to glass. So we've got this poster here that's a love letter to glass making, and it's got all these diagrams, and sometimes if you look at it, you can kind of create your own story from what you're seeing. Pan doesn't really kind of spell things out for you through this, but allows you to kind of come to your own conclusions as to how this is a love letter to glass. I like this part that says fried chicken wings. It makes me laugh every time. And then she's got these musical notes. That's the song that she's written with the lyrics in it. And then below it is her record cover. So this will be the front part. And then the back with all the songs and their labels on them. So Pan's plan during the pandemic was to create the record, but she ran into, a lot of these artists in this exhibition ran into some technical issues due to the pandemic. So they couldn't fully bring their pieces to fruition. So the record is to come. And then we've got this piece. So Pan has made some sound piece that accompanies this work, and there's a QR code in here that you can access probably through Pan's website, and you can hear the sounds of her beating the glass and using the noises and words from the glass blowing studio. So like blow harder or hotter, heated, and things like that. And then we've got this video where Pan is kind of exploring the noises of glass. So she's using her mouth on this hand blown piece that fits around her mouth to make noises and think about how language we use to express ourselves and talk about our feelings and things that are kind of hard to express. So we've got Pan, which is, this glass piece that is kind of void of any handmade pieces of glass, besides this, the found object. All right, and again, some more artwork that's maybe void of glass art or hard to tell where the glass is. So we've got Sharon Omara, and this piece is called, just read it so I don't get it wrong, Chandelier for Infinite Joy Inverted. So sorry for my phone's going off if you guys can hear that. So this piece is kind of a version of a piece Sharon had made in the past, and they're based off of these prints that her dogs have made on glass, while they're waiting for her to come home. So this is pulled from these windows of her dog's waiting for her home. And then she took that imagery and then altered it in Photoshop to create this inverted image. So they can't really quite tell what it was to begin with, but now it kind of looks like this chandelier. So she's exploring the idea of ephemerality and relationships and love and companionship and all of these things that we wish would be permanent, but there's kind of no way for them to last forever. And creating this kind of shroud. So if you can see, it's on this really delicate silk. So it's white silk and it's printed black. So all of the lighter parts don't have any ink on it. And then the black is the parts with the ink. And then if you can kind of see, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, it sparkles a little bit. But there's some reflective glass powder on there, kind of speaking to the magic of the chandelier and the magic of the reflectiveness of glass. And then listening to Sharon talk about this piece is really nice because she's thinking a lot about also flags, and this is being a commentary on kind of our current state during the pandemic and exploring the positive aspects of things as well as the inverted nature of our reality, which is kind of the negative aspects of the qualities of life. So it's like this very somber piece. And then we've got Evan Vogel's piece. He's a recent MFA from RISD. This is called Erdos. So if you guys can see that. So Evan did a residency at Wheaton where he explored kind of different types of colored glass. So Evan creates his own fluorescent glass. So he's created this color that glows underneath a black light. And then he suspended it in this solution. So it kind of looks like it's floating. And it's on top of this handmade cement pedestal. So Erdos means, let me just read it so I don't say it wrong. Erdos means that which is seen. So Evan's kind of exploring this idea of perception versus reality. Like what is this luminescent object that's floating in space, and how is it defying gravity? And then it's kind of questioning the reality of what we're seeing, because it's kind of playing a trick with our eyes using this mineral oil. I'm not sure if you guys know how like mineral oil has the same refractive qualities as glass, or a type of glass. So when you fill clear glass and surround it with mineral oil, it kind of disappears. So you can kind of see these like little pieces of clear glass, and that's what's holding it all up. But from afar, it just looks like it's this floating like space alien orb.
And then Caitlin, can you repeat what's this artist's name again?
Evan Vogel, Voelbel. Yeah, he makes some really interesting work. And he is based in Brooklyn. So then we've got David Schnuckle. He's a faculty at RIT. I think he's their program head. So this piece is called Trajectories. Let's see if it'll focus on there. So this is 3 parts to this piece, and it's kind of about the exploration of making and unmaking. So he's using the cup or the goblet, which is, this practice going to learn how to make the simple shape, or the more complicated shape of a goblet, and learn muscle memory and things like that. But rather than use the cup as a tool to learn how to make a beautiful cup, he's using it as a way to explore and discover through unmaking. So he's putting these goblets in a kiln, heating them up, and then exploring kind of how they fall apart and mapping their origin. And then paired with them, each 3 of these is this kind of conversation he's having with this person called Dr. Perez. We don't know whether or not this person is a real person or imagined. because we only have one end of the conversation between David and this doctor about the exploration of these goblets and the meaning of life and the contradictions that he's exploring within it. And here's this third one. And right down there is the flattened piece. I think in the first letter, it kind of talks about it really nicely, where he says, let's see. The documentation of the specimen's collapse, starting right side up, has since been viewed by me about 100 times. I've seen it this way too much. I'm now working with software to pick apart the sequences of specimens undoing, to separate frames of these videos, studies this individual images to look for patterns in the path of their falling. I'm attempting essentially to map the trajectory of their compromise through superimposing still images of their journey from standing upright to fallen at rest. Cartograms of both stillness and motion, images of both body and apparition, a conversation that isn't about ruin as much as it is about transport and passage. So again, another kind of non-object based piece of glass art that's still exploring making and glass. And then we've got over here Matthew de Perez. So he is a Brooklyn-based artist who's represented by Heller Gallery. So these pieces are called his pile pieces. This is pile 2. So he's using kind of the detritus of his making of these cast-offs from his castings. He's combining them and fusing them together and then mirrorizing them to create these panels. So kind of turning the garbage into art, and also thinking about kind of the wastefulness of glass making and how to kind of subvert that thought process. He's also really interested in kind of the otherness of glass. So he uses the parts that people aren't interested in holding on to. And then, okay, I feel like I'm losing control of this doodad. And then this is the final piece in the show. So this is by Clements. She's based in Kansas City. She was in Philadelphia for a while. It's called Payon. So she uses kind of this, the beauty of glass to often mask these darker stories. And so Payon is the name of a Greek god. And he was kind of a healer. And he was taught by another physician of the gods. And he was just, Payon was better than his teacher. He realized that he was going to be murdered by his teacher. So another god, I think it was, let's see, which god was it? I think it was Pluto. I don't remember. Another important god chose to change Payon into a flower in order to save his life. So that's where the word peony comes from. It's based off of this Greek god. So it's this beauty of life and death. And, you know, even though he wasn't murdered, he was still turned into a flower and no longer existed for, you know, the thing that he was most skilled at. But these are kiln form pieces of glass, and they're kind of put together in these, there's multiple little pieces to them. And she sent us with this really detailed map for hanging the pieces together. And thinking about kind of the archway and death and kind of that concept of, you know, beyond the veil and what happens after death.
Can you repeat this artist's name again for us, Caitlin?
Yeah, Kate Clements.
Kate
Clements. Yeah. Right there.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. So that is, yeah, I went through it fast. So that's all the work from the show. Is there anything that anyone wanted to see closer up or had questions about? If not, I can talk more about kind of the curatorial process or things like that. anyone with questions? I can't see if anyone's typing. Yeah.
Stephanie has a question.
Yeah, so I was wondering what kind of struggles you had when it came to handling like the diverse materials.
Yeah.
First, yeah, I wanted to say thank you for including multimedia artists.
Oh yeah, of course. I think it's important. It's where glass is going, and glass is kind of going in all of these different directions, from only glass to multimedia to installation and things like that. But so difficulties transporting, or is that
putting up this show, considering like when we saw Kate Clements' work, I was just kind of wondering how fragile that was, and
Yeah, this show was this show was an ordeal to install. I definitely owe a lot to our exhibitions team. We had to push back the opening a week actually, because it took so long to these pieces. So let's see. So Kate did a really great job of packing her artwork. She's shipped her artwork a lot of places in the past, so she kind of had a lot of experience with that, but everything was kind of each piece. So like say like this is a piece, was kind of on a piece of foam and outlined, and it had a number. And then she sent us this sheet of plastic that was life size and had the outline of every piece and the number of every piece. So we could hang the plastic, make sure everything fit correctly, everything looked right. And then from there, we used that pattern to kind of know where every piece needed to go. Yeah, so that was
So
really,
smart.
yeah,
Very
it was
smart.
super smart. Kate's really generous. Her email address is on her website. So if you ever need advice, I'm sure she'd be willing to share. Let's see, Jess Julius's piece was kind of an easier install than you would think, because these aren't quite so fragile. So these just came in a box, but Jess couldn't come into the museum because of COVID and like health issues. So she actually had to install this kind of over Zoom with our installation team. So that was like a whole new set of barriers that we hadn't experienced before. Let's see.
That's an interesting concept though, of like in the future for artists who maybe can't travel to these physical spaces, of trying to do an interactive like virtual installation. That could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And it certainly for a lot of the artists, like only a handful of them came to install their actual artwork. So there was a lot of calling and being like, does this look okay to you? Because it was important to me that the artists felt like their work was being represented well. So let's see, like Deborah wasn't able to be here for installation, but she sent a lot of pictures. We had a lot of conversations. She gave us this map. So there was a lot of that part to it. Let's see, some behind the scenes information, like Andrew Erdos's piece. This was initially supposed to be a different piece called From the Top of the Ocean to the Bottom of the Sky, which broke in shipping, and so did another piece broke in shipping, and we had to ship it back, have it fixed really quickly, and then he sent it back to us, which was great that worked out. But Andrew had another piece that he could give us, which worked out really well. So here I'll go back to Eric's piece. So yeah, there was lots of, in a group show, especially last, you kind of prepare for that. But it's always, COVID made things even more difficult. So Eric saved this piece really nicely. So we shipped him back the letters that had broken off, and he kind of repaired it and had the letters kind of sit on the piece. So the pink one came intact, and this one was just a little bit broken. So there's also, it comes to a point where you can only pack your work so well when it's being shipped by certain companies. Yeah. Any other questions? I can talk some more about the curatorial process. So as a, I have an MFA and a BFA, but I don't have, a curatorial degree or any kind of museum studies degree. So something that I wasn't sure about when I was in undergrad or grad school is how you become a curator and how that happens. The museum that I work at has a curatorial, like emerging curator program. So you can apply to have an exhibition here. They do expect you to kind of be on top of it. You know, they're not walking you through the whole process, but they do give you the opportunity, if your proposal is accepted, to have your own exhibition here. So there was a lot more steps to it than I had realized. There's, you know, the initial proposal, and then your checklist of artists that you then submit for approval, and then reaching out to all of these artists, doing studio visits with all of them, which in this case had to be virtual. And then from there, you know, choosing the artwork. Some artists made new work for the show, like Deborah and Sharon. So kind of checking in with them periodically to make sure that the work was coming along and still kind of in line with the theme of the exhibition. So it kind of becomes this, you know, you become a part of the art making process as well. You know, and then coordinating delivery and installation and pickup, and then all the writing that's included in an exhibition. So every kind of didactic label is written by you as the curator, and then there's the exhibition statement and the press releases and things like that. And then thinking kind of about, for me, the importance of this exhibition was to kind of show people outside the glass community that there's more to glass than maybe what they've seen on Blown Away or, you know, a pretty vessel. So it was really important to me that this was kind of a diverse show, but also that it was accessible. Usually things are kind of understandable. The language in my didactics isn't, you know, highfalutin art speak. That was also very important to me. And then every artist was given the opportunity to record talking about their own artwork. So almost every piece has a QR code so that people can just listen to the artist talk about the artwork instead of, you know, having to read. Is that a raised hand?
Yeah. For the QR codes, for the artist explanations or the artist commentary, is that available online?
I'm not sure if it's available online yet, but we are, the exhibition will be online in a virtual format soon.
Oh, nice.
And I think the QR codes will be there. Yeah.
And I also kind of wanted to piggyback on what you were saying about kind of making this inclusive, I guess, community when it came to glass. I wrote it out here.
What was that last part?
An inclusive community, kind of showcasing kind of the trajectory of like where glass is going and your interpretation of it. So I wrote down when you were talking about it, just my comments on how I felt about it, and I kind of wanted to hear your guys' feedback on this. I wrote, I appreciate how you're creating space for multimedia artists who are glass lovers and explorers. It's not hard to think about why artists are drawn to such a transformative and dynamic material. As someone who wants to incorporate other elements into my work, I started to question and doubt the validity of submitting my own work to glass organizations like GAS, because I'm self-conscious about how much glass is in the work. So I kind of wanted to get your guys' input on how you felt about that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak too much. Does anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, I could hop in at least from the current perspective of GAS. I know there's been a lot of changes and shifts in the past couple of years as an organization. But when it comes to our exhibitions, which, little plug, those applications are open right now, and all of you should definitely apply if you're GAS members. But for us, we are definitely interested in what contemporary glass art looks like right now, if that's predominantly glass as a medium, or if you are multidisciplinary. The key with us is just that glass needs to be one of the primary mediums, and it should be relatively clear that you can visibly tell that glass is involved. Hopefully that helped clarify a little.
But yeah, I find it exciting to have glass art that is mixed media and multimedia, and also not technically based in the video making part of it. It's hard to access when you graduate any of these facilities. So the ability to kind of create these multimedia objects, maybe not with such specialized tools, is important. And I think, well-made art is well-made art, and sometimes it includes glass. So that's kind of how I was looking at it. And that's also why it was important to me to kind of have such a diverse show, like diverse artwork, and also thinking about this thing with the opposites and the dichotomy of glass and the importance of craft and kind of the inability to kind of get to a place like this without acknowledging the history that kind of got us here, but also looking forward to, where else this can go, as, Kim is going to turn this into kind of there will be an accompanying children's book, and it's going to become more kinetic and, have a whole story paired with it. Yeah.
Great question. Does anyone else have questions for Caitlin, whether it's about specific pieces or the curatorial process? I definitely have one. Ariel, do you have a question?
Yeah, everything is so interesting from such a far away, I wanted to ask if the pieces, are insured.
Yes.
And all of that. Like, I'm now, putting an exhibition here in Israel, and we have some problems with that. So just to know general things.
Yeah, definitely. So for most museum exhibitions, museums have their own insurance. So when an artist submits work to an exhibition, they have to fill out a loan agreement, either them or their representing gallery. And that includes the value of their artwork. So insurance covers it if it breaks while it's under our care. So yeah, all of these are insured through us. And then some people, like, Andrew's piece, the mirrored piece, which the initial piece that was going to be in the show broke, like, he had insurance on his work. So it was covered by his insurance because it hadn't been installed or touched by anyone at the museum before it got to us. Yeah, insurance is an important thing for your work.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Caitlin, what made the switch for you, or maybe like the light bulb of, you are an artist and also an educator at the museum, but why did you want to shift into that curatorial role? And maybe for other artists here or who watch the recording, like, what would be helpful for artists who want to become a curator or at least host one kind of exhibition?
Yeah. Wait, what was the first part of that question? The very beginning cut out.
Kind of like your personal, like, why did you want to become a curator?
Yeah. Well, I guess so. For me, I'm an artist, a glass artist, but I've always been a writer as well as like a big thinker. A lot of my work is very conceptual. So I feel like I've had a lot of thoughts about the glass community and how we're kind of displayed, I think, by people outside of the glass community. So that was kind of where my desire to kind of say something about the glass community in a very specific way. So that was kind of where the transition came into curating an exhibition. So it's kind of this, it's hard to, I think, curate or be a curator of glass without being a maker of glass, just because it's possible, but there's, it's definitely a lot easier since I understand the material and I know the community. So had all these ideas and, wanting to represent it, but I'm not making all of these things that I have in this show. So, being a thinker, a maker, and a writer was definitely very helpful. And this show kind of just happened. Like, this exhibition is a craft-based fine art museum. So they wanted a show in glass. They knew that I had knowledge about the glass community. So I had brought in books and articles and did a presentation on where I thought contemporary glass was. And from there is kind of where the interest in me curating this exhibition came from. So it's always been an interest of mine. It's definitely difficult. I don't know. I need a breather and a break before I do it again. It was kind of harder than putting together work for a final. Yeah.
So then kind of the second part of that, and that advice piece of for artists who are interested in curating maybe just one show, what would be a good advice to them?
I mean, I would just look out for the opportunities. There's so many artist-run spaces that are looking for artists that are or want to be curators. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. So starting off at those artist-run spaces, applying for those opportunities. And then from there, there are plenty of museums that have emerging curator opportunities, or even a job as a curatorial assistant will kind of give you all the knowledge that comes with curating an exhibition from start to finish. So there's kind of multiple ways to get into it, I think, but those two would definitely be, I think, the best route to go. And then, and then there's a lot more that goes with it, besides, getting the artists together and, having that conversation and nurturing that relationship, as well as, placing the show, having the concept. And then there's the promotion, because you want more than just the people who are coming to your museum to see it. So then, the press packets and the museums you reach out to and things like that, or the, magazines and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's a great answer. And I'm curious if maybe just off the top of your head, you have one or two of those artist-run spaces that you think would be really good for maybe first time.
Yeah. I know that, sorry. I don't know what just happened. Am I here still? Okay. Bye. Just kidding. There's I think Tiger Strike's Asteroid. I'm not sure if they do a curator related call, but a space like that. So there's a few in Philly. I can't think of anything specific, but on NYFA, I don't know if you guys go to that website. It's nyfa.org, but they have a classifieds and an opportunities section, or even I'm sure soon, our museum is going to be promoting our emerging curator program. So it might be on GAS's website soon. So the Hunterdon Art Museum has one as well. So I'm sorry, I don't have anything I can't think of the names of these places, but yeah, they're in Philly, they're in cities for the most part, Philadelphia, New York, sure Seattle has a bunch of them. Yeah. And sometimes if they're not posted, you could even just reach out to them. This is a show I want to have. I've been a curatorial assistant and a curatorial intern before, and the amount of times that curators just get packets sent to them, they look at all of them. They might not, respond to you, but they'll see them, and it's good practice. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any last minute questions or even just comments? You don't have to have a question.
That was great advice.
Thanks. I'm glad I could help.
Yeah. And I'm just curious for artists, what type of benefit or, so much work just goes into creating your own artwork. Do artists see value in trying to curate exhibits as well? Or is it just kind of particular depending on the person?
For me, or?
I guess it was just a general kind of thought that emerged in my brain.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. for personal experience, you know, there is a paycheck that comes with being a curator, which is nice. Doesn't always come with being an artist. Yeah.
Like I know I am not personally a glass artist, but one way to kind of make your name in the glass community is through fellowships or, you know, residencies. And so I'm starting to think of, well, would curating a show kind of help boost your name or, you know, become better known?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if anything, it shows, you know, how hard you're willing to work and how organized you can be, which I think is something that's really important to kind of any organization that's looking to take on a person as an employee or an artist or a worker. So yeah, it's beneficial if it's something you're interested in. If it's something that you're just choosing to do as a line on a resume, it's going to be an absurd amount of work for very little payoff. So, you know, curating it's not for everybody. You know, some people just want to be artists, and I think that's equally important. Yeah.
All right. Well then, unless anyone has any last minute questions or comments, I just want to give a big special thank you to our guest Caitlin today for joining us.
You're welcome.
We also want to take the opportunity to thank everyone here in the audience for attending, whether you're live with us right now or watch the recording later. Speaking of which, you can watch or listen to this program again, and that will be made available on the GAS website and our YouTube channel within about a week or so. And a last special thank you to all of our donors, because GAS programs, services, and benefits would not be possible without contributions from people like you. So stay tuned for the next GAS student meetup, which will be happening in March. And you can find information about that on the GAS website or by signing up for the GAS Monthly Digest. And thank you all. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Take
Have
care.
a good day. Bye.